Good day to all of you. This is in continuation of an overview of John Keats, and we were doing the different aspects of Keats, and in that strain, the first that we are going to do is about Keats and Romanticism. Now, Keats belonged to a literary movement called Romanticism, and the Romantic poets, because of their theories of literature and life, were drawn to lyric poetry. And they even developed a new form of ode, often called the Romantic Meditative Ode. Now, these odes, they had a typical movement. The poet who was unhappy with the real world escaped would escape or attempt to escape into the ideal world, and disappointed in his mental flight, he would return back to the real world. And he would return because he would realize that it was not possible to live in the ideal forever, or because he could not find what he was seeking and searching for in that ideal world. But this experience of going from the real to the ideal to the imaginary to the visionary and then back to the real world, what did this experience do? This experience changed his understanding of his situation, of the world in general, of his own views and feelings and attitudes. And what would happen at the end of the poem? His feelings would differ very significantly from those which he had held at the beginning of the poem. So, this is what the romantic meditative ode was all about, and Keats wrote quite a few odes. Now, talking about the themes in Keats's major poems, uh, his themes grew directly out of his inner conflicts. For example, pain and pleasure are intertwined in Ode to Nightingale and Ode on a Grecian Urn. Love is intertwined with pain, and pleasure is intertwined with death in La Belle Dame Sans Merci, The Eve of Saint Agnes, and Isabella. Now, there are many other conflicts also which appear in Keats's poetry. Now, what are these conflicts? These conflicts are the conflict between the ideal and the real, the mortal and the immortal, life and death, vision and reality, transient sensation, feelings, or passion, and the permanence of art. And Keats also associated love and pain both in his life and in his poetry. Uh, in his odes, uh, there was a persistent kind of experience which dominated Keats's feelings, attitudes, and thoughts during that time. And each of them is a unique experience, but it was also a facet of a larger experience. And what was this larger experience? This larger experience was an intense awareness of both the joy and pain, the happiness and the sorrow of human life. And this kind of awareness becomes a kind of brooding, a brooding contemplation of the lot of human beings who must satisfy their desire for happiness in a world where joy and pain are inevitably and inextricably tied together. And this union of joy and pain is the fundamental fact of human experience that Keats has observed and accepted as true. Uh, in Ode to Nightingale and Ode on a Grecian Urn, Keats tries to free himself from the world of change by identifying with the nightingale, which represents nature, or the urn, which represents art. So, this is a little bit about the odes, and the imagery of Keats ranges among physical sensations of sight, hearing, taste, touch, smell, weight, pressure, hunger, thirst, sexuality, and movement. And Keats has repeatedly combined different senses in one image. And such a practice, when you combine different senses in one image, is called synesthesia. Synaesthesia. And this kind of imagery performs two major functions in his poems. It is part of the sensual effect, and the combining of senses, normally experienced as separate, suggests an underlying unity of dissimilar happenings. I'll give you an example of this. For example, in Ode to Nightingale, there is this line I quote: in some melodious plot of beechen green. Now, this line combines sound. Melodious is sound, and beechen green is sight. So, when there is a combination of two senses, sight and sound, or any other sense, it is known as synesthesia. Another example is uh, tasting of flora and the country green. So here the poet tastes, and there is the sense of taste, and the country green is the sense of sight. So it's another example of synesthesia. Thesia. Uh, so, I hope this overview of Keats helps you to understand the poet and also helps you in understanding his poems and hope you are able to make some notes out of this overview.